Really good to see you. Thank you for coming and taking a really valuable hour of your day. So I really appreciate it. Let's make sure it's a really, really good session. I'm going to pull up a few slides. And while I do so, for those that have been here before, you probably know my question. I'm going to get your fingers warmed up because I'd like this to be as interactive as possible. Would you put into the chat a word or a phrase that comes to mind when you think of the word governance, or good governance, if you like? And I'll pull my slides up. And yes, we will have some time for questions at the end, but Connor is going to be monitoring the chat box going through. So Connor, do just interrupt me if someone's asked a question at the time, which makes sense to deal with then. It doesn't need to be me going through my slides at pace. We can have a chat. Okay, so what do we have in the chat box? So welcomes. Okay, complexity. Yes, I'm doing my best to put this into kind of a 15-minute webinar, but forgive me if I don't get the level right. Responsibility, yes, good. Structure, yeah. We were talking about structures. Oversight, yes, important, good. Hopefully that's why you're here. You've given it lots of importance today. Responsibility, variety. Nice. It's not a word I tend to use very often. I like that. Best practice. Yes, definitely. We'll be discussing some best practice. Policy and procedures. Maybe not the sexiest of phrases, but you're right. There's going to be some of that, isn't there? Anything else, please do pop in there. We will be touching on a number of those things today. And if there's anything I don't touch on, feel free to ask me about it and I'll do the best I possibly can. Okay, so the G of ESG. I'm going to do a brief intro before we get onto the meat. So for those of you that haven't met me before, Mahala Beckett, I'm Chief Sustainability Officer at Connect 3. My background, I'm an economist by background. I work for the Department for International Development, so very much specialised on poverty and inequality reduction in the Global South. That's my kind of social background, I suppose. I then moved on to be a company director of a travel company that we took through B Corp. So we looked at how a private sector company can do its best by people and planet. And that B Corp word is something I'm going to be spending just a few minutes on today because I've been alluding to it for the last few sessions. I thought it was about time I told you a little bit more about that. I'm a trained B Corp consultant, so I help companies to use the B Corp framework for best practice. And I'm also one of 3 co-chairs of the Scotland B Corp community, so a load of companies that are working on and being B Corp certified. And I'm a professional certified business and leadership coach. So very much a coaching approach to companies doing better. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to give you some ideas, spark your imagination and support you to move forward. So that's me. In terms of Connect 3, well, we're a people and business consultancy and we create inspirational leaders that build healthy businesses that are really great places to work. And that includes supporting companies to grow with their strategy, their vision, their purpose, their value, and a lot of support through change. We are most definitely a people first organization. So we really work on the leadership, on building high performing teams and supporting HR policies. And our ESG work, our sustainability consultancy fits very much into everything we do. But if we want to sum it up, we call this our future work life. So ESG consulting, workplace innovation, and increasing practices around EDI, equity, diversity and inclusion. I do believe we'll be having a webinar series on the EDI work in the new year. So do watch out for that if that's something that you would love to hear more about. Basically, we're on a mission to make the planet a better place both to work and to live. And I'm assuming you're joining us on that mission because you're here and you've taken time to think about it. So we're very happy to have you. We've worked with a lot of companies. Some of these are examples in Scotland and beyond. And we're now working on several continents now internationally. And the thing I wanted to draw your attention to here, we are a certified B Corp. So we do our best to practice what we preach. We have good standards of social and environmental performance as well as economic, and we are here to share that and support other companies to do the same. And that's why we are here today. So enough about us. What about you? So this is what we'd like you to take from today's session. So first of all, a bit of knowledge. What is good governance? What would be the benefits of being a better governed business? What are some of the barriers that you might be experiencing? And what are some of the opportunities that you can realize through looking at your governance. Some ideas. So not all of this will be relevant for you right now. Not all of it will be practical. Not all of it will be really beneficial to implement, but some ideas as to what's going to be useful for you to take on board. So I hope to spark some of your imagination today. And then some confidence in actually taking action on building a better governed business for social impact, for environmental impact, and for a profitable and resilient business going forward. So that might be a tall order in 50 or so minutes, but that's what we'd like to really start you off on today. And if that doesn't sound like why you're here, then feel free to go and get yourself some lunch, but hopefully you're all happy with it. All right, so a little warm up. As usual, I'm going to ask you a few questions just to spark your imagination. I'm not going to talk much at all actually about regulation today, but I think in terms of governance, I'm going to ask you this question. So 3 questions just to get you warmed up. I'd love you to use the chat. T or an F. ESG regulation is coming. True or false? What do you reckon? True, false here already. True, true. True T. Any other takers? Some trues. False here. Yes. It may be a trick question. Who knows? All right, let's see while they're coming in. So I said true. However, you're right. It's a bit more complex than that, isn't it? So in many ways, it's already here. So if you think about regulation in terms of the environment, in terms of social practice, in terms of good governance, there is a lot of business law around that, about paying people properly, about setting up transparencies. There's already a lot of law around this, so we don't need to wait for anything. When we tend to think about ESG regulation, we tend to think about environmental and climate change, which I'm not going to go into today, but even that, our bigger companies in the UK are already required to disclose around climate change, and the EU has just approved some legislation which is going to be coming in by 2028, where companies are going to have to say of 10 different subjects, what in terms of social and environment, what's material to their business and what should they be reporting on across all of the 3 ESG pillars. So it's going to come. Broader and more specific ESG regulation is going to come. But what I say is, let's not wait. Let's get on the front foot. Let's be proactive about this, and let's build this strategy from the start. All right, question 2. Company that leads with purpose is building a trusted brand. True or false? Couple of truths. Anyone want to beg to differ? Usually, yeah. Again, these aren't necessarily black and white, but they're usually good questions just to spark some discussion. All right, so what do I think? True. I'm going to say true. There may be nuances, of course. So this was from, let me just check my source, Just Capital's 2021 American Business Survey. So it's a couple of years out of date. I'd like to see some updated stats on this, but I can't imagine it's gone the other way. When asked, consumers in the US said they were 78% more likely to want to work for a trusted company, for a company building, what was the company that leading with purpose, 78% more likely to want to work for that company, 76% more likely to trust that company, 72% more likely to be loyal to that company, and 72% more likely to forgive that company of a misstep, which I think is interesting. Like, none of us are perfect, right? But building a brand that is purposeful is not only good for your employees, but also for your bottom line, for your consumers. All right, question 3. Business conduct rarely affects consumer purchasing decisions. Not that important. True or false? False, false, false. A few more false. Doesn't anyone want to beg to differ? Made it too easy this week. All right. Well, what do I reckon to this? False. And this is from Porter Novelli's 2021 Purpose Perception Surveys. And Alex, if you wouldn't mind muting your mic, unless you want to speak, that would be great. Thank you. So 2/3 of companies, 2/3 of consumers, so 66% of consumers say that even if they love a company's products or services, they will boycott that company if it does something wrong or offensive. which is super interesting. They'll only stay loyal if they don't see that company taking a misstep and doing something social or environmentally wrong. So as you can see, the governance area, we can cover an awful lot of things. Hopefully that's got you thinking about the breadth of what we could cover today. And I'm going to take 2 minutes to just talk about ESG in general. So what is it? Well, it's environment, it's social impact, and it's good governance. We have already covered the environment in a former webinar. Replay is available and on the IoD YouTube channel. So if you would like a primer on, I think we covered energy, carbon and net zero. We covered waste and circular business models. We covered resources and we covered climate resilience adaptation. So if you'd like a primer on that, either get in touch with Connor or find the YouTube channel for IoD. Yes, it's all about the environment, and people play a huge part in this, and the way that you set up your business for success is super important. Therefore, we've really got, when we're thinking about sustainability, we've really got to consider social impact. And on the 1st of November, we did an S of ESG. The replay again is available, where we looked at all the different stakeholder groups, internally your workforce, and then your customers and your supply chain and advocacy community action. So again, replay is available if you want to dig into the S of ESG. But today, we are looking at the governance enablers to a more sustainable company, to sustainable growth in your company. And these are all the things that we could have covered today. Business vision and purpose, business models, including B Corp, your board structure, your leadership, decision making. I actually can't see what's below my screen. Materiality assessments, there we go. Sustainability strategy, impact measurement, transparency and accountability, and impact reporting and regulation. We are not going to go through each of those in turn, but it's a big subject. It is complex. So we're just going to pick out a few things to look at today. But just to say that at Connect 3, we see sustainable business at looking at governance and environment and social impact together holistically. We don't see them as separate subjects. As you will see, there's lots of interplay between them. So I've kind of broken them down, but one really does feed into the other and support the other. So this is our model for sustainable business that we like to work with customers on. But today we're going to be looking at governance enablers, and I've picked out 4 main topics that we're going to touch on and dig into a couple of them. So one is your business model and the purpose of existing. Always good to start at the beginning. We'll start with the end in mind. Your leadership and your decision-making practices, materiality and strategy, and impact measurement and reporting. Each of them are big subjects, but we're going to give a bit of an introduction and some examples to them. So I hope that works for you. So business model and purpose. So, on purpose, here's a question for you. Maybe 2 questions. First of all, why are you in business? If you want to scribble that down, write it in the chat. Like, what is the reason that your business exists? You're here to create value for someone, for something. But maybe that's going to change. And maybe the reason that you set up in business may no longer be enough for the future environment. So if I was to meet you in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, and you bowled me over with how enthusiastic you were about the impact of your business, you couldn't believe what an incredible business you were still running and owning, and you were so proud of the impact that you were creating for different people, for the planet, or the economy. What would you be telling me? What would you be really proud to be creating in the world? What was a purpose you'd love to get out of bed for your business, for the business that you're working in, for the business you're a senior manager in? Is it just to make money? Or is there a wider purpose to your business? What value do you create out there in the world? Really important. We've got someone saying looking after others is our main purpose. Poverty alleviation, really nice. And there'll be many of you that are in business to make a profit with a really standard product or service, and on the side are creating really great value for your employees, additional value for your customers, great value for your suppliers, or perhaps for those distributing your goods. Perhaps you're creating great environmental value from what you're doing. Yeah, I like that. Money isn't everything, but humanity is. Yeah, lovely. Making the world a better place to live and work, like that, David. So that's something, somewhere to start. Having a look at your purpose, having a look at your company mission statement, your vision. Does it still resonate? Are you creating the value you're proud to create? Is there more there? So I welcome you all to have a look at your vision, your mission, whether it's really formal, something on your website, or something informal that's inside you if you're a smaller business. New employment avenues, yeah, that's really nice. So that's a really good place to start. And then the next question is on stakeholders. Well, who do you create value for? You might be providing a standard product or service, but perhaps you create a lot of employment opportunities for people that otherwise wouldn't have access to the employment market. Perhaps you create incredible environmental value for your local community in the way that you tend to the local environment. Perhaps you create great value for customers that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford the products or services that you would normally. So that's one, who are you providing value for in terms of stakeholders? And then the second one is, how do you consider the preferences of your stakeholders in what you create? So your stakeholder engagement. How do you take into account what your customers would love you to deliver? How do you take into account the way that your employees would love to create value in the world through your company? Who do you talk to? Who do you formally consult with? Ask them what value you'd love them to create other than providing with jeans or architectural services or whatever you do. So stakeholders, there's two ways there. That's best to have a look at what have we been doing so far? What more could we do? What more do we want to do? Who else could we be bringing into some of our decisions around why we're in business and how we create value in the world? And then finally, if you want to get really formal about it, there are different ways you can set up your business. So if you are a standard business, if you're perhaps a limited company, even if you're perhaps a sole trader, partnership, you are creating your objective generally, standard businesses to create shareholder value to maximize profits, right? I'm just going to dig into this one a little bit. So standard business model, especially for a limited company, is shareholder maximize model. So in your company articles, at Companies House, you've got something that says, as a director, my promise is to maximize profit, to maximize shareholder value through the decisions I take in my business. Standard, that's how every company is set up as a limited company. There are other ways. There are social enterprises, there are community investment companies, there are obviously nonprofits. There are cooperatives, they are employee-owned trusts and businesses. And a lot of these are more stakeholder driven model. So that's not saying that you don't still look to be profitable. A social enterprise still needs to be profitable, right? In order to invest in the social or environmental issues that they want to. But profit isn't the only thing. And as an example, B Corp, if you become a B Corporation, there's three things that it includes. And one of them is actually changing your legal documents. And the small change to it is basically saying at that point where you talk about your duties as a director, it basically says, as a director, I promise to take all stakeholders into account when I'm making decisions. When I'm making strategic decisions or operational decisions, I will look at the impact on my profit and on my employees and my suppliers and my customers and my investors and the planet. A great example of this, Patagonia, I think announced a year ago, they were actually having one of their board members is the planet. And they will formally make sure that they consult the planet, what's going to happen to the environment when we make this decision. So you could actually formally change how your business is set up in a legal way to say, actually, we're taking broad-based into consideration when we're making decisions. And I'm happy to talk more about that if useful. Second thing that B Corp is, if that's something you wanted to have a look at, it's a best practice framework. So not only do you promise to take into other stakeholders into your decisions, but you're also looking at your performance around your governance, which are all the subjects we're discussing today, including what's in your mission statement, what do your legal articles look like, who's on your board, etc. You're also looking at best practice for looking after your workers, their financial well-being, their mental and physical well-being, their health and safety, how engaged they are, your attrition, how you empower them in decisions. Also then looking at your impact on the community, so your economic impact, How many good jobs at living wage are you creating? How are you recruiting? Are you recruiting in a diverse way, an inclusive way? Are you looking to improve the performance and social performance of your supply chain? Are you giving back in terms of financial donations to charities that are aligned with your mission? Are you doing pro bono work? Are you doing volunteering service? And are you doing any advocacy? Are you there supporting the industry, educating peer companies about how you are good for people and planet and how they could be doing better? So that's the community section. The environment section is how you are looking after resources, land, water, waste, air, climate, and what you're doing to make a positive impact on the environment rather than negative. And then finally, customers, which is something we covered in the S of ESG last time, is how are you creating extra positive impact for your customers. So if you were to make that legal change to your company documents, not only are you looking at all stakeholders, but you're also looking at how you can create really great value through those 5 groups. And the last thing I just wanted to say about B Corp, which is quite different. It's again anti-establishment, I would say, that you have to sign a declaration of interdependence. And I might even read this to you because I think it's really lovely. So you have to sign to say that we envisage a global economy that uses business as a force for good. This economy is comprised of a new type of corporation, the B Corporation, which is purpose-driven and creates benefit for all stakeholders, not just shareholders. As B Corporations and leaders of this emerging economy, we believe that we must be the change we seek to see in the world, that all business ought to be conducted as if people and place mattered, that through their products, practices, and profits, businesses should aspire to do no harm and benefit all. To do so requires that we act with the understanding that we are each dependent upon another and thus responsible for each other. And I can't read the end of the slide, but you get it because I got my toolbar in the way. But I hope you get the impression that these are companies that have said we're not just going to compete with our competitors, we're going to try and lift up the level of all organization. And that obviously is great in terms of governance. We up-level the whole industry that we're working in. It's a different way of doing business. It's still wanting to make a profit, and then it's doing really great things with that profit. If anyone wants to know more about B Corp, I'm not going to say any more on the matter, but part of our advocacy is talking about this framework, this community, and how you can use it to be a better business. So very happy to provide more information on that. But that's just one example of a business model, a slightly different way to do business that benefits people and planet. One I'm most familiar with. You may have different, it'd be interesting to hear if anyone has different articles. There may be some social enterprises, some non-profits in the room. That'd be interesting to hear about. Connor, do let me know if there's any questions on that before I move on to leadership and decision making.
Will do, I'll keep an eye.
Great. Okay, so the second one I wanted to touch on was leadership and decision making. I don't think I'll be diving into these, but just to give you some examples. So you may have a board, you may be considering a board. If you don't have a board, then perhaps you can just replace board with senior leadership team. So it's the top level of people making decisions for your company. It's really good governance to have really good representation on that board. And that might mean representation of the general public. It might mean representation of your staff. It might mean representation of your customers. So I once worked for a company where 80% of the staff were women, about 80% of the customers were women, and I think 90% of the board were male. And they were like, oh, maybe we're not quite making the decisions that represent the people that are working for us and buying from us. Maybe we could do something about that. They also, at the same time, realized didn't have anyone independent on the board. So it's all very well for senior managers to be making decisions, but it's really good to have people on the outside that aren't thinking, God, how is this going to affect my pay packet? How is this going to affect my bonus? To actually have some genuine objective challenge and some really good experience from other industries and other businesses. So do have a think about who's on your board. Is it representative? Does it have independent members? And if you're thinking about independent members, are there people you can bring into your board that would support you on your social impact, that would support you on your environmental sustainability? What are the gaps in your senior leadership team and your board currently? And how could you have someone on that board that does ask you what that impact is on the environment, that does ask you what you're doing in your local community, if that's material important to you? So that's one way of getting some extra board advisory. Look at the ethics of your board. Have they all signed a code of ethics, non-competing, non-conflicting objectives? And then what is your board seeing? And we'll be coming on to monitoring and managing and reporting, but how are you making decisions on social impact, on environmental performance? Are they getting KPIs as well as a top line revenue and bottom line profit? Are they getting a performance overview of your social impact, your good governance, and environmental performance? And are they able to make decisions on that based on what you provide them? So that's something around your board. I say replace senior leadership team if you don't have one. And then I guess the same comes down to your leadership. So are your managers in your company representative of your other employees, of the UK, or insert your country ethnic representation, for example, of your customers? And especially if you are at the top of the organization, the leader organization will set the tone in terms of making sure that social impact, environmental responsibility is important. So what are you role modeling as a leader or a senior leadership in your organization? How can you be better modeling the way you'd like everyone else to be acting? You're setting the culture, setting the tone, setting what's important in your organization. Have a think about that. What are you training? What do your staff get to learn about in terms of, is it just what they need to do their job? Are you providing training on how to be more environmentally friendly, how to be a more inclusive workplace? What's that? Senior leadership sets the tone for what's important, what people should be spending their time on outside of their day jobs. And then it's really good practice to have performance reviews that don't just say, how did you contribute to profit and customer feedback this year, but actually, what did you do to help us improve the performance of our company environmentally, helped us improve the performance of our company as a good place to work, as a good community advocate. So have a think about, from the top all the way down, how you can get everyone into a culture of looking at performance more broadly and not just financially. And then finally, externalities, which is a little bit of an economic term, but in terms of making decisions on strategy or perhaps on operational decisions, how are you capturing some of the less financial data? How are you capturing the positive and negative impacts that those decisions, those new products, those new services would have on the environment and other people? And there are some ways to do that, and a couple of simple ways. If you are a physical product that makes something, it might be paying for your affluent water that goes off into rivers. Any company can look at the negative impacts, such as carbon, that their company releases, and thinking about reducing it, thinking about, at least if you've measured it, you know what it is, and it becomes an expense in your profit and loss account. So how can you bring price of carbon into your profit and loss account so it actually helps you to make decisions, so you can start to reduce it, you can maybe offset it, or even better, you can start to remove it, and it then reduces the costs on your business. So in terms of setting the tone, leading, having the right representation on the board, I think these are some of the things that you can think about after you've figured out, well, what do we want to achieve as an organization? And I wasn't going to dig any more into those three. Hopefully they're fairly self-explanatory, but happy to take any questions.
We did have a comment just partway through there, Mahala, Keith Wallace, just underlining what you were saying about the importance of independence on the board. And he was saying, it's not just if you're a large organization, even at a small level, it can be of high value.
Yes, absolutely. And to be honest, one way to do that if you're a smaller organization is get an advisor, get a coach, get a consultant, someone to challenge. If you're just a small company and a board seems a step too far, who do you have externally that is challenging your thinking on things? That's another way, perhaps a cost-effective, time-effective way of doing it. I'd encourage you to look into the right person for you to challenge your thinking on some things. All right, let's move on. Well, too far. Materiality and strategy. Now, there's lots we could talk about strategy, so I'm not going to go into that. I think that's a whole nother webinar in itself. I'm happy to do that at some point. I guess three things I'd like to just point out. Ideally, you would have a business strategy that looks towards sustainable growth, that there wouldn't be business strategy and sustainability strategy as two completely different things long term. However, it might be useful for you, if you haven't already, to have a think about how you want to be better for people and planet, and look at some baselines. Where are you right now in terms of social acts and environmental performance? Because you might just want to do some focus time. In the end, I would like to see you bringing that into your strategy. So the way that you operate, your growth plans are all including how you will look after the planet and how you'll be better for your people. But it might be something you want to separate out now to give it some focus. And in terms of focusing on what you focus on, a materiality assessment is something that's really, really useful. So basically, it will help you decide which social, economic, and environmental issues are actually material to your business that you should be including in a future strategy, and which actually, maybe it's not that they're not important, but they're not particularly important to your business. They're not material enough for you to put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into financial and time investment. And then obviously the next step, once you've got a sustainable strategy, is actually taking action on it. I see a lot of companies get as far as the strategy bit and then go, oh, okay, that's great. But actually taking action on it, having accountable owners, and then measuring and reporting your progress against that, which we will come on to. What I did want to delve into is the materiality bit, because I think this is super interesting and something we do with quite a lot of companies. You can do yourself, if you like. So the EU actually have been quite big in their regulation that's come in on double materiality. So they're asking companies in the next couple of years to start look at, well, what is material to you? And then we want you to report on those things. And they define double materiality as one, it's financially material to your business. If you were to double it or half it, it would make a difference to your P&L. It's worth considering financially. And then secondly, that if you doing something on this thing would have a material impact on the issue, either on your people or on the planet. So this is an example, a condensed version of a company we've worked with. See if you can guess the industry. So things in the top right are both materially financially to the company. So they see staff engagement, like the more engaged staff are, the better the company's going to do financially. But also the more engaged staff are, the happier their staff are going to be. And them doing a bit of work and engaging their staff more is going to give them happier staff. Right down to things like an ethical marketing policy. Yeah, they considered doing one. I think they have got one now. But they're like, honestly, us having an ethical marketing policy, we don't tend to irritate the regulators very often. We don't tend, so us having one isn't going to massively change the financial viability of a company. It's useful. Honestly, if we have one, will our customers be way happy about the way we do our marketing? Not really, just a good thing to have. And then there's sort of everything in between. And how we did it, we looked at all 5 pillars of the B Corp framework. So some things are governance wise, profit was important. Transparency is seen was not particularly impactful. Some things on their workers, so health and wellness, volunteering leave was seen as not particularly impactful for this organisation. Things on their community, so job creation at living wage was seen as important, whereas screening their suppliers on environmental metrics was seen as maybe not priority. I may have begged to differ on that one, but there we go. This is their work, not mine. Customer, so customer feedback, data privacy, things they considered. And then on environment, they saw getting their product organic certified was like super important for them. They saw recycling at headquarters not that important because they didn't have that much office space. So I would recommend anyone to go through this with their company so that you know what to focus on and you know where value you can create, what's important for you financially as well as social and impactfully and environmentally, and actually what areas maybe you'd get to another time, maybe you wouldn't, but are not that important. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? Very quick overview, but quite a powerful tool in terms of prioritizing.
Just as people formulate questions on this, Mahala, we just had a question, just as you've done, to do with the previous section from Alex. He was just asking about your views on best practice on board composition and performance assessment.
Ooh, so
maybe a big question, but
best practice on board representation and performance.
On board composition and on performance assessment.
Yeah, so I think that maybe the second one's a bit easier, performance assessment. I guess best practice is the board being formal, about it meeting regularly, about it taking notes and taking action, um, about it looking at environmental and social and economic statistics, which are material to you. So that comes back to looking at what's material. What do you now need to be reporting to the board, and what should they be looking at performance? Unless you mean board performance specifically, but I guess that will be them showing up and improving performance over time and the things that are important, I suppose. I guess that's hard. In terms of representation, that's hard to say, isn't it? I guess you will know if you look at your board whether it's representative of your staff and your customers. And I can't say what that is, but I suspect all white male and stale is a certain type of board, which probably we're going to say probably not to, unless I don't know if that's going to have answered the question, or if there's anything more nuanced in that.
No, thank you. And thank you, Alex, as well for the question.
Yeah, sure. But again, we could talk for hours on that, couldn't we? Okay. So that was materiality assessment. I encourage you to have a think about that, or get in touch if you'd like us to help you with one of those. I think it's a really good place to start. And that could even inform, therefore, what should our mission statement look like, given that we actually care about these things a lot more than these things. So it might be that you actually start with that. It's just coming up with those list of topics which could be possible. And we started with many more than this, and we just took them off as sort of not applicable. The final thing I wanted to briefly touch on was impact measurement and reporting. So let's say we've done a materiality assessment. We've now got things in the top right, which are both, if we were to double them or half them, if we were to do excel in them or really mess up on them, it would have a financial implication, positive or negative, for our business. And also, if we were to do something on them, we would improve an outcome either for the planet or for the people, our stakeholders around us. So we've decided they're important to us, a certain amount of them. Now, some things will be important enough that you'll give managers in your organization the remit to start to look at where you are now, your baseline, to look at where you'd like to go and to start to track things. Some will be important enough that they'll become KPIs, key performance indicators for the board. Your staff engagement, maybe, your customer feedback, your staff attrition, maybe your carbon baseline and your percentages reductions every year, maybe your rate of waste to landfill, maybe your B Corp score, maybe the diversity metrics of your company or your managers or your board. You decide what's important for you, but ideally you will start reporting to the highest level that makes sense, your performance along all these things, so that that board can actually gain knowledge of where you are, know where you want to go, and give you some good, healthy challenge on an accountability on improving it, right? Transparency is important. So don't hide your goals and your performance against them. What can you do to make sure everyone internally is aware of your goals, that everyone internally has a part to play? And that's where it comes into performance reviews, getting something in them that says, how did you contribute to us being a better business this last year? It's everyone's role. People get to see some management reports that show how your carbon is coming down, how your staff engagement is going up. Hopefully these are good practice anyway, but you can kind of bring them together as part of business as usual, general reporting feedback. And then externally, what are you putting on your website? Can you be brave and put some goals there? Can you be brave and tell them how you performed against it? That's that trust thing. I actually looked at a whole industry. I looked at top 20 companies and I compared them across the board on what they said about their social and environmental goals and how they reported on them. And you really do end up having a lot of respect and trust for the companies that were really open, even when they didn't meet their targets, even when they said we really wanted to be 100% organic, but this happened and this happened, so now we're going for this. The trust that that brings in consumers compared to a company that doesn't even have anything. We'd love to be net zero. And what? And how you doing? How you doing against that? So I would say look for ways, if there are genuine ways you would love to improve, get your staff involved, but then also get external bodies involved. Is there something you can do to change your company documents, which requires you to look at other stakeholders? Can you get your audit involved to help you to make improvements on social and environmental performance? Can you join a peer group? There was one university I heard speak last week that decided to join league tables for environment and social responsibility because they wanted to compare themselves to peers and improve. Would you like to be signatory to some commitments, whether that's net zero, whether that's signing up to lobby the government for more environmental laws, etc.? Is there some way that you can get accountability either from peers, industry bodies, or some formal certification that's actually going to help you do what you want to do? And the one thing I did just want to dig into before we finish was one way you can do that is to actually have an impact report. Now, this is something that we as Connect 3 are required to do as part of our B Corp certification. So we recertify every 3 years to show that we have improved our performance along these 5 pillars: the environment, our workforce, the community, our governance. I can't see this, but our governance and the trying to be missing out. Oh, so we've got these 5 pillars that we report against, and we recertify every 3 years. The 2 years in between, we're required to provide an impact report, which basically does 3 things. And I'll give you an example from our not yet published upcoming impact report. One, it says what are our goals in the area. So for the environment, our goals are around being net zero, offsetting CO2, investing in the community, ethical supply chains and stakeholders. These are the lofty goals we had when we were certified as a B Corp. We're then required to say what we actually did, like really honestly, how do we do against them? So what we tried, what we've embedded, and actually what we're celebrating, what did we actually achieve? And within that, we're to talk about what are our challenges, what did we not do, what do we need to change, like genuinely being really transparent about our performance around this. And then the next thing is, what's next for us? So setting ourselves some new goals, some new targets within our large goals. What can you come back to us in a year's time? What will be reporting on? So again, these are the things we want to do around net zero, offsetting, investing in the community, ethical supply chain and stakeholders. This is what you can hold us accountable for in a year's time. And again, we'll report how we did, what we tried, what we embedded, and what we celebrated. And the hope is that it helps keep us on track, because we know we've got to report on this. It gets us excited to want to celebrate all the good things we're doing, but also it tells our customers, our clients, our potential staff that we're serious about this and we're willing to put out there in the world that we're doing good stuff. We're not perfect, but we plan to be better. So you might not want to be B Corp, you might not want to put a full impact report out there, but what could you do? Send out to your stakeholders, put on your website to communicate that you're up to something in the world and you're making progress on it. I think that really does help, not only to give you internal accountability, but also build trust, build that brand. Connor, I don't know if there's anything about that you wanted to ask me.
No questions at the moment, but we just had a bit of a chat going from Alex's last question between him and Keith. Just
great
points about transparency.
Great, everyone do pitch in. We've got lots of experience in the room. That's great. So, I mean, I've picked out 6 benefits of good governance in the lines that we've spoken. There are many more. So you've probably got, it's going to help you get a clear strategic focus for creating value in the world. It's going to boost investor confidence, doing all these good, transparent, accountable things. It's going to build trust and loyalty with your customers. It's going to foster a good workplace culture. You're going to identify and manage both risks and opportunities. And it's going to, when done well, is going to build broad-based value in the world for your company over the long term, right? And I hope you can see how doing some of the things we've just spoken about would really provide a lot of benefit. And if there are more you can think of, feel free to bung them in the chat. There are many good benefits. So I have a question for you, and hopefully, Connor, if you can pull the poll up. I have a question. So we've talked about 4 very large buckets of things. It's a question for you, if you wouldn't mind voting. Which aspect of good governance that we've discussed today feels like the next opportunity for your business? It might be all of them. I've given you some ideas, but if you were to say, actually, this is what I'm going to go away tomorrow and have a little bit of a look at, or next week, whenever your next opportunity, what do you think might be a good opportunity for you? Is it looking at the purpose for your organization and your business model? Is it looking at your board or your leadership? Is it start to look at what's material for your business, or is it looking at your reporting and transparency? I'm going to vote too, because I know what it is for me.
I think we have a clear leader at the moment, but I'm going to give it another couple, give it a little
Okay,
bit just
yep,
for
to
everyone
vote.
to vote, see if the ones near the end can reclaim the lead. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I think it's a pretty clear winner. Let me just publish.
Okay, let's see what we've got. So reporting and transparency, then board and leadership, then materiality and strategy, and then purpose and business model. Interesting. Well, feel free if you'd like to find out what the next step for your journey that would be, then feel free to get in touch. I'd love to have a chat. For me, it's reporting and transparency. We're all about the impact report at the moment, coming soon. Happy to share it with you guys for some inspiration when we publish it. Good. So then just to finish off, really, there are all sorts of barriers to people getting started or taking the next step. Is this relevant for us? Hopefully, it is relevant for you because you've taken the time in coming today, and hopefully you've all taken something that is a next step that you could do for your company. Knowing what to do, hopefully this has given you some ideas on what things you could start looking into, looking at implementing in your organization. Yes, you do need to put some time into this, but this is part of your business as usual strategy, not something on the side, and you can see the benefits of it. Hopefully you will create some time to give this some focus, and hopefully this is giving you inspiration to get off your butts and to take some action. And let's get some positive momentum that we get in the way of that inertia, which I know can set in when you are busy with business as usual. So I can see, looking at the answer to the poll just now, we've got people at all different stages. There are some people now that will be like, where are we now? What's our baseline? There'll be others of you that will be thinking, okay, it's time to set a strategy. What is our vision? What's material to us? And what could be our sustainability strategy that we could move into our main strategy? Some of you might have that and you're just thinking, God, I need to take some action on this. And hopefully today you've been given a few ideas of what to take your next step on. And then for some of you, you'll be thinking, well, actually, we're doing quite a lot of this stuff. Maybe it's about being a bit braver and setting goals, measuring performance, and communicating that to build trust, not only in your customers, but to make your employees proud of who they work for. These are all things that we help our customers to do. We're all at different stages. We work with some companies that are just struggling to compete and they don't really know why. And we go in and we say, well, let's have a look at your performance across ESG and what can we take an action on that improves your competitiveness, that improves staff morale, helps you get more tenders. Some of you will be at stage 2. You're ready, kind of know what you want to do. You just need to find a bit of time and a bit of space to put a strategy together. Some of you will be doing such good things for people and planet that you actually just want to maybe join a peer group, join a community, change your business, your articles of association, maybe have a look at B Corp certification. And if you don't know what stage you're at, we have an ESG diagnostic, which is a 7-minute diagnostic, 16 questions that will give you a fair feel for how you're doing against the E, the S, and the G. And it will give you some really helpful tips on maybe what you should consider next. There is a QR code there. I hope that that's also in the chat, a link to the form. Take it. It takes 7 minutes. It'll give you a really good idea of next steps. And we're very happy to chat you through it. That's just for us to say we are on a mission to make the world a better place to live and to work. We hope this has given you some ideas as to how you can do that in your organisation for your stakeholders too. We would love to speak to you. Feel free, I think that goes straight through to my diary if you'd like, having done the ESG diagnostic, to have a chat with us about next steps. It's all part of our advocacy and being a good business in the community. Feel free to reach out for further information. And if there are anything you'd love me or my colleagues or perhaps other peer companies we know to dig into something more specific, as Connor said, let us know what that is and we will try and find the right person to give you more information. And I'm going to stop there at that point, if everyone's had a chance to scan, and open up for a few minutes of questions if there are any.
That's great. Yeah, we've got one question already, but just before that, I just want to say thank you very much, Mahala, for your time. It's been really interesting. I think lots of kind of like key shared values and goals, but different ways to kind of approach things depending on your size, or what you want to prioritize, or whether you want to name the planet as a member of your board of directors.
Mm.
There's the different ideas. You can
Not
be
everyone's
creative.
Patagonia ready, but it's good that there are some real role models there in the
I mean,
business
so
community.
Keith was talking
Yeah.
about thinking a small company level. Obviously, this person was thinking at a much bigger level, but all different, all valid. So let me just have a see. I think we had one question here. So yeah, we had one from Alex. He said, do you see any companies implementing anti-corruption systems and standards to reduce governance risk?
Ooh. Yes. And I think the majority of companies we work with are not huge, so that will be in their own way. So it will be checks and balances. It will be a lot of supplier questionnaires and audits and visiting people. Um, I feel like often companies don't take it massively serious until something happens. And then, yes. But don't wait. I guess I think it's about that materiality, like finding out where are our risks and do we accept them or do we put something in place? And I think for different companies, whether your product or service, which markets you're working in, etc. I'm thinking, I think it's quite industry specific, but I think the important thing is to have the session where you thrash through what the risks are. Um, I don't know if I can be more specific on that one, but if Alex, if you had a particular question in mind, then feel free to be more specific.
No, that's great. Thank you. I'm so sure you can see a lot of thank you messages. I think a message here from Barry kind of underlined what you were saying. Thanks for the session. Good to see governance becoming more forward-looking than just compliance oriented.
There'll be other people that can give you that's not going to be us, but that's important too. We thought we'd try and give you a slightly different angle today because I'm sure the Institute of Directors probably, hopefully, covers that really well. And I know you do have a syllabus on that. So I hope that sparks some broader considerations and something actionable for you to take away. All right. Well, thank you, Connor. There's no further questions.
I think, no, nothing in the comments. If anyone who's on the camera wants to say hello or ask a question direct, please feel free. But yeah, if not, yeah, no, we can call it then. And thank you very much again for your time, not just today, but with the preceding weeks. And as Mahal was saying, yes, we'll send out again the link to the diagnostic tool, but also we'll include the slides, and there'll be a recording of this session as well. And that should be with you. It'll be probably early next week.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. So great to see you. Be happy to see you again soon. Have a good rest of the afternoon.
Thanks. Bye.